Hello everybody, it's December 11th on 2016 and this vlog of mine is on some semantics for a sustainable biospheric future. I sometimes liked, all of the time I like to play with words, with language, and with a drive inside myself to heal people and to get to a new framing of our species away from the Homo sapiens towards the Homo consciens. I am envisioning a ecological thriving biosphere by moving towards a permaculture for human nature, and that framed my thinking in a big way, and that helped me to come up with a lot of new words, which I will simply and shortly in this vlog will discuss with you. Last week I heard that Erwin Laszlo from the Club of Budapest spoke about a biospheric mill of energy. So when Tesla says that everything is energy, frequency and vibration, all the energy which comes out of the universe into our atmosphere and biosphere becomes part of a whole biospheric mill of energy, and that forms and formed the web of life. And we have to use all of our sentience, not only us as a species but all the other sentient beings as well, flora and fauna, to restore this biospheric mill of energy over here in our biosphere, because otherwise things will fall apart and we will be lost. So my aim is to go for a permaculture for nature as well for human nature, and what we need for that is a whole set of new semantical framings, and I just try briefly to get through the list of new words I invented so far over the past years, aiming all my attention towards this big goal of neurodiversity advocacy. I just quote briefly Thich Nhat Hanh. He is talking about interbeing, so we should move towards interbeing, relating in a new way to one another and to the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. So we have to put our interesse, to go to the space between as interbeings. It's very important. Another important thing for me was entelechy. So what is the source, the causa finalis, the main goal of a being over here in this biosphere, which it has to fulfill. It plays a far more important role, I think, than resilience. All these scientists are talking about resilience. Resilience to thrive again. I take some other anchor, and that is entelechy. You need to go to the special, unique force, and then resilience will show. But on top of it is not resilience, but entelechy. Talking about interbeing, entelechy, or intelligence, Jiddu Krishnamurti and David Bohm once spoke about intelligence, and they thought that the original meaning of it semantically should be interlegere, what can be read in between the lines by a person. So what does your natural functioning system do? What do you naturally read in between the lines when you, with all your senses, scan your environments, get all this information and try to process it inside in order to express yourself as a sentient being. So interlegere, what naturally can be read in between the lines, is a next building block in my theory. Another one is invented by Mr. Dasman, and it's biodiversity. So we need biodiversity to have the web of life thriving. Judy Singer came up with neurodiversity. So what is as above, so below, as without, so within. In nature there is biodiversity, but we in ourselves have this neurodiversity. Was a eureka moment for me when I read this word, because a whole new world opened to me. Well, Linnaeus several centuries ago came up with the framing of mankind as a Homo sapiens, a thinking primate. I totally disagree right now with this framing. We fucked up all of it, all of the spheres in the biosphere, so we need to become a Homo consciens. I invented this framing with a teacher in Latin, and a Homo consciens is a sentient being, like the Homo sapiens, is a sentient being who can become aware of its self, its neural manual, because we are all wired differently. So a Homo consciens, everyone is intelligent in a unique way, and the Homo consciens in a culture which allows to discover the very special things in every being. A Homo consciens is able to discover its own unique intelligence and to discover its own systemic, karmic and cultural traumas and the things which formed and degenerated itself as a being, and is able after that, with the whole scope of interventions, to heal this self and to transform this pain into passion. So we need to get rid of the framing of a Homo sapiens very quickly and go towards a framing of a Homo consciens. That can alter all man-made systems, and that can get us back or closer to human nature, to ourselves, to each other, and nature as a whole. Other framings from the Homo sapiens are, for example, Homo economicus, which I can easily put a pendant beside as a Homo ecologicus. So from the Homo economicus to a Homo ecologicus gives a totally different framing, away from the money, back to the functioning of the natural systems. So just invent all kinds of pendants to move away from this old school framing and old school dogmas. Homo economicus, Homo ecologicus, Homo ecocidus. Ecocide is a term I think Polly Higgins invented. Homo ecocidus is the driving force behind the destruction of all spheres in our biosphere. I came up with a new one also, because as without, so within, Homo neurocidus. So what we do to our environment, we also do to ourselves. If we destruct outer ecosystems, we also destruct our inner ecosystems, our mental landscape, with depression, Alzheimer, all kinds of inflammations of all kinds of inner ecosystems as a result. So what we do to the outer world, we do to ourselves. Outer destruction leads to inner destruction, and inner destruction leads to outer destruction. So we have this Homo ecocidus destructing all kinds of outer landscapes, and we have this Homo neurocidus destructing its own inner landscapes. Another thing which passed by was solastalgia by Albrecht, and that is that when once we, and it has to do with the former thing I said, once we destruct landscapes, we get lost. Landscapes where we grew up in, so we get lost. We get totally lost, and that imprints our mental well-being. Otto Scharmer, or maybe someone else, came up with the term ecosystem awareness. We need ecosystem awareness to restore these environments via honoring biodiversity and coming towards a permaculture for human nature, for example, I invented the word neurosystem awareness. So, as without, so within, you need a dual awareness to restore all of the spheres in the biosphere, I think. And that is, one, this outer ecosystem awareness, to restore outer ecosystems, and two, inner ecosystem awareness, neurosystem awareness, to restore our own inner ecosystems. And know thyself, but now know thyself neurally, to be or not to be. That is still the question, but it can be solved right now. The answer is there. Neurosystem awareness, ecosystem awareness. If we get rid of that puzzle, everything can go, become in balance. Some other words to play with are ego system awareness, awareness of our ego system, and self system awareness. Neural manual, I already discussed it briefly. Also framing of ourselves, which can be easily done in the near future if my vision comes alive. And then there's a Mr. Pavlov who discusses the Anthropocene. That is an era, the first man-made era in the geological time framing. I think that we are also able to change this Anthropocene into an ecocene, E-C-O-C-E-N-E. So ecocene can be the Anthropocene version 2.0. And that's where we have to go to via this dual awareness, ecosystem awareness and neurosystem awareness. Bill Mollenson and maybe one or two other people invented a permaculture for nature by honoring biodiversity, having all these root systems entangle and have nature thriving all over the place. I envision a permaculture for human nature. And how does that happen? That happens by reversing Darwin's root brain hypothesis. Darwin and Darwin, the two brothers, they thought that what happens in our brain is also happening underground via root systems. I want to reverse that now, that what we learn in ecology from root systems nowadays can also be extrapolated back again to human beings with their neural systems, their neural root systems, and communicating through the atmosphere in all kinds of ways. So you see this field underground at the soil, but the same field is over here via the field, the Akashic field, via our souls. And that's a very simple thing to keep in mind. So we have to switch, and we have to alter this hypothesis of Darwin, reverse it, and then we can come back to our senses, go back to our roots, literally again, our neural roots. Let's come back to our senses, literally, via honoring biodiversity. And that will help us not only in nature to have a big increase in biomass, but also in human nature to regain neural mass again. So get rid of that Alzheimer, where there's this huge brain erosion or Parkinson or all kinds of disorders and stress, which suppresses human nature to thrive. One of the people who also influenced me a lot over the past years is Peter Mary with his Center for Human Emergence, and maybe he invented this term or somebody else, I don't know for sure, but evolutionary leadership. So what kind of responsibility do you for yourself take to be part of an evolutionary process, a progressive evolutionary process? Then I switched to some other words. The commons, the common lands. Mr. Hardin invented this word, and I simply extrapolated to our mental landscape. So we also have our mental commons. Our mental commons have been heavily abused over the past decades. So we need to be able, as a homo consciens in a permaculture for human nature, to return to our the mental common ground which makes us human, as a brother, as a son, as a father, as a friend, as a human being, not a human doing or not a professional, but as human beings, as sentient beings. Let us return, let us come back to our senses, come back to our roots, back to our mental commons. So our common future, which is written totally for a sustainable environment, can simply be rewritten by changing of environment for environment. So this environmental climate crisis gets also reflected to our environment. So we also have an environmental crisis. So again, outer commons, inner commons, as without, so within. It's extremely simple. Start biodiversity advocacy, start neurodiversity advocacy, flip this root brain hypothesis, and rearrange every system from the ego to the self, to whole nations, to whole economics. Change economics in neuronomics. That's one other word I invented. Economy needs a pendant. Money has been heavily abused to remain in power. What we now need is empowerment. Away from power, empowerment of our species, but only if we also start to respect all other living beings and all of the spheres in our biosphere. So we misbehave badly. The Homo sapiens has abused everything in the Anthropocene. And in order to go to an ecocene, the Homo consciens must first restore its inner mental landscapes. And as Einstein said, free himself from his mental prison in order to gain compassion, to embrace the whole the whole nature in its beauty. So that is the big work out of our time. We need to restore our inner landscapes in order to restore the outer landscapes. So we need a new, and we also need a new social contract for it. Mr. Hobbes invented this term, the social contract, and I think we have to come up with, as a sentient species, as a Homo consciens in the future, with a neural contract. And that leads to totally different human rights. It's not rights on education, but rights on discovering your own unique self, your own unique intelligence, and discovering which traumas and inheritances formed and degenerated you, and how you, as a unique human being, we are not all equal, we are all unique, and from that uniqueness, a totally different social contract comes alive. And that leads to new universal entelechy rights, the right to come as close as possible to your causa finalis. Where are you here for on this earth? And how can you bring that into expression? So we need, and that is only for our species. What we in fact need is a universal space holding of natural sentience in all of the species. So in this new ecocene, as a Homo consciens, we need to come to a universal way of space holding of natural sentience via a permaculture for nature and a permaculture for human nature. And we can only reach this if we slide from scale, from emotional guidance scale, we are now, by the people in power, constantly forced to feel depressed and full of anxiety. Nagayev invented the term terrorism. I think we need a pendant again, besides this economy and neuronomy and so on, permaculture for nature, permaculture for human nature. I think that we need a counterforce for terrorism, and that is harmonism. Getting in tune again, in harmony again, away from fear and anxiety, which the people in power have always done with their financing wars and weapons industry and robbing. Well, you know this story. And then once we reach this harmonism, and once we, as uniquely sentient beings, are able to come to ourselves and clean up our systems, then we can get in flow, a term we all know. So we not only have this biosphere and this biospheric mill of energy, where Erwin Laszlo talked about, but also I think our neurosphere, this neurospheric mill of energy, which is constant, or our neural pathways, which are constantly forming and degenerating us. So we need to be very much aware of our inner climate crisis we now have as a species. And we need mental hygiene. Some very last remarks on this absurd semantical and maybe complex talk of mine. Maybe you find me crazy, totally crazy, but maybe in 10 or 15 years' time this will be normal in our culture, all these words. Ries and Wackernagel came up with ecological footprint, which is now common sense among a lot of people. And I think it was Thursday or Friday, it was my last semantical trouvaille, come up with a neurological brain print. So we are a sentient species, and we are fantastic as a species. We have our imagination. All kinds of people say that it's so wonderful. And we want to leave a neurological brain print over here with our key quality, but maybe we need to calm down, come back to our senses, and also make this neurological brain print not that big. Everybody wants to rule the world or wants to have his impressions, but maybe we should leave it far more at ease and calm down. It's a very long blog, already over nearly 23 minutes. I don't care. I just want to share this as early as possible so that I can show to you what I try to create, new world. I just briefly read the list of words I used in this blog at the end. The blog is called Some Semantics for a Sustainable Biospheric Future. And the meanings I used or created are Biospheric Mill of Energy by Laszlo, Web of Life by Fritjof Capra, Sentience or Sentient, unknown, Interbeing, Thich Nhat Hanh, Entelechy, Aristotle, Interlegere, Intelligence, as discussed by Krishnamurti and Bohm, Biodiversity by Dasman, Neurodiversity by Singer, Homo sapiens by Linnaeus, Homo consciens by me and Paul Groos, Homo economicus, Homo ecocidis by me, Homo neurocidis, Ecocide by Higgins, Neurocide by me, Solastalgia by Albrecht, Ecosystem Awareness, Sharma, I don't know, Neurosystem Awareness by me, Ego-system Awareness, maybe by me, Self-system Awareness, Neural Manual by me, Anthropocene by Pavlov, Ecocene by Van Weelderen, Permaculture for Nature, Mollison, Permaculture for Human Nature by me, Ecology by Heikel, Ecology of Mind by Bateson, Biomass, Neuromass, Mental Landscape, en-viron-mental with hyphens by me, en-viron-mental with hyphens, and in-viron-mental with hyphens. Even evolutionary leadership, Peter Mary, question mark, commons by Hardin, mental commons by me, hold space, Heather Platt maybe, ecosystem space holding by me, neurosystem space holding, environmental activism by me, restorative human development, I forgot to say, so we need a new global business, be the change you wish to see in the world, then we as a species need restorative human development first. And then Darwin's root brain hypothesis reversed. Then I come up with the brain root hypothesis, social contract by Hobbes, neural contract by Van Weelderen, economy, and then the pendant a neuronomy, neural systems, empowerment, leading, and not money, solidified energy, universal entelechy rights, universal space holding for natural sentience, terrorism by Negaev, harmonism by me, flow by Csikszentmihalyi, neurosphere by Weiss, and I want to stretch that meaning as well, the neurosphere, biosphere by Suez, neurospheric climate crisis by me, mental hygiene, ecological footprint, Ries and Wackernagel, and neurological brain print by me. So this is an absurd summing up of things. It might be crazy to some people. People might find me crazy, but just think of the language we now use in IT and in the computer world. If somebody would give you a talk on that with all these kind of semantical things 20 years ago, you would consider him crazy, and now it's totally embedded in our culture. I hope that these semantical meanings will be largely embedded in our culture to come to a permaculture for human nature via neurodiversity advocacy in order to restore the biospheric mill of energy over here on Mother Earth. Thank you very much.